In 70 CE, the Roman Empire crushed the Jewish revolt, destroyed Jerusalem, burned the Second Temple, and exiled much of the Jewish population from the land of Israel. What followed was one of the most far-reaching dispersions in human history. Jewish communities spread across the Middle East, North Africa, Europe, and eventually to every corner of the world. Yet even as they built new lives far from their homeland, the land they had left behind never faded from their consciousness. For nearly 2,000 years, the memory of Israel, its hills, its cities, its sacred places, remained an integral part of Jewish identity. This enduring memory is what ultimately made modern Zionism possible. But how did a people scattered across continents keep the memory of a distant homeland alive for so long? To understand this, we must first recognize something fundamental: the land of Israel is woven into Judaism itself. Jewish law, the framework of Jewish life, is inseparable from the land. According to tradition, there are 613 commandments in the Torah. Remarkably, over a third of them can only be fulfilled in the land of Israel. These include agricultural laws and rituals connected to the temple in Jerusalem. When the temple was destroyed and exile began, many of these commandments could no longer be practiced. But instead of letting them fade, these laws remained part of Jewish identity. Jewish communities preserved them in two ways. Some commandments were kept symbolically, not out of obligation, but out of memory. They served as reminders of what once was, and what might one day be restored. Others, especially those tied to the temple, were studied intensely. Entire sections of Jewish scholarship were devoted to laws that could not be practiced at all. They were learned as preparation, as if the return could happen at any moment. This approach shaped the great works of Jewish learning. The Jerusalem Talmud was compiled in the land of Israel, mainly in Tiberias and Caesarea, around the 4th and 5th centuries CE. And it preserved discussions of laws tied to the land even as Jewish life there struggled under Roman and Byzantine rule. But perhaps the most powerful way the memory was preserved was prayer. Judaism has 3 daily prayers, and at the heart of each is the Amidah, a central prayer containing 19 blessings. One of these blessings asks God to gather the Jewish people from the 4 corners of the earth and return them to their land. For nearly 2 millennia, millions of Jews recited this prayer every single day. The longing for return appeared not only in the words of the prayers but also in the direction of prayer itself. Wherever Jews lived, from Yemen to Spain, from Poland to Morocco, they prayed facing Jerusalem. This constant orientation toward the land created a spiritual map that no exile could erase. Customs also kept the memory alive. At every Jewish wedding, after the ceremony, the groom recites the ancient words, "If I forget thee, O Jerusalem," and then breaks a glass. A moment of sorrow woven into joy. A reminder that even on the happiest day, the world is incomplete without Jerusalem restored. Throughout the Middle Ages, Jewish poets wrote verses filled with longing for Zion. The great poet Yehuda Halevi captured this yearning when he wrote, "My heart is in the east, and I am in the farthest west." Through prayer, ritual, and literature, the memory of the land remained vivid, not as a distant legend, but as a living aspiration. But there is another part of this story, one far less known. Even after the destruction of the Second Temple, Jewish life in the land of Israel did not vanish. In the immediate aftermath, Jewish leadership regrouped in the coastal town of Yavne, where Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai and the sages rebuilt the foundations of Jewish practice. Here, prayer replaced sacrifice, law was reorganized, and a shattered nation found a new center of gravity. A major upheaval came with the Bar Kokhba revolt, which happened from 132 until 135 CE and which was fueled by hopes of restoring independence. The revolt ended in catastrophic defeat. Rome responded with overwhelming force, mass killings, enslavement, and a ban on Jews entering Jerusalem. The Roman Emperor Hadrian renamed the province of Judea, Syria Palestina, in a deliberate attempt to sever Jewish identity from the land. Many Jews fled to the Galilee, where Roman control was lighter and agricultural life could continue. Towns like Usha, Sepphoris, and Tiberias became new centers of Jewish life. In these Galilean towns, Jewish life reorganized itself. Rabbinic courts were established, academies flourished, and a new intellectual and spiritual center emerged. This northern shift laid the foundation for the next centuries of Jewish scholarship. The Jewish communities in the Galilee and surrounding regions endured, maintaining religious and communal life. In the generations that followed, the Galilee remained the heart of Jewish scholarship. Around 200 CE, Rabbi Judah ha-Nasi completed the Mishnah in this region, a monumental work that preserved centuries of tradition and became the foundation of Jewish law. This achievement ensured the continuity of Jewish learning long after the temple's destruction. Archaeology gives us a vivid window into this era. The Hammam Tiberias synagogue was built in the late 3rd to 4th century under Roman rule and was renovated in the early Byzantine period. It features a striking zodiac mosaic and Hebrew inscriptions. Its artistry and scale reveal a confident, thriving Jewish community, one that continued to pray, study, and build centuries after Jerusalem's fall. Under the Byzantine Empire in the 4th to 7th centuries, Jews faced new restrictions as Christianity became the state religion. Even so, Jewish scholarship continued, and the Jerusalem Talmud was compiled in this period. Archaeological remains, synagogues, inscriptions, mosaics, testified to vibrant Jewish communities across the Galilee and Golan, and in other regions of the land as well. An archaeological example from this era is the Gaza synagogue mosaic, which is dated to the 6th century. Its depiction of King David as a musician reveals a culturally confident Jewish community living under Byzantine rule. A major shift occurred in 638, when Muslim armies conquered the land. Under early Islamic rule, Jews generally experienced greater stability than under the Byzantines. Communities lived in Jerusalem, Tiberias, Ramla, and other towns, participating in the region's economic and cultural life. The arrival of the Crusaders in 1099 brought severe hardship. The conquest of Jerusalem was accompanied by massacres of Jewish and Muslim inhabitants, and many Jewish communities in coastal cities were destroyed. Jewish life contracted to small enclaves, primarily in the Galilee. Yet even in this era, the thread of continuity did not break. When the Mamluks expelled the Crusaders in 1291, the region entered a period of economic decline and political instability. Jewish communities remained small and often impoverished, concentrated in Jerusalem, Hebron, Safed, and a few Galilean towns. A more significant change began in 1516, when the Ottoman Empire took control. Jewish settlement became concentrated in the 4 holy cities, Jerusalem, Hebron, Safed, and Tiberias. Safed flourished in the 16th century. Sephardic Jews expelled from Spain revitalized the city, turning it into a global center of Jewish mysticism and legal scholarship. Figures such as Rabbi Joseph Caro and Rabbi Isaac Luria transformed Safed into a hub of spiritual creativity. Jerusalem's Jewish community also grew steadily under Ottoman rule. Despite poverty and heavy taxation, Jews maintained a continuous presence, forming one of the city's largest religious communities by the 18th century. Travelers from the West who visited the area commented on what they saw. The French writer Laurent Darvieux, visiting in the 17th century, described the Jews of Safed and Tiberias with striking clarity. He wrote that they lived modestly, yet with great devotion, preserving the memory of their ancestors and the ancient glory of this land. In the mid-19th century, the English traveler Mary Eliza Rogers observed Jerusalem's Jews with similar insight. She wrote, "They cling to the city with a devotion unlike any other people. As though every stone were bound to their history." Throughout the Ottoman centuries, waves of Jewish immigration, Sephardic, North African, Middle Eastern, and later Ashkenazi, reinforced this continuity. By the early 19th century, Jewish communities in the 4 holy cities were firmly established. Their presence represented a continuous chain stretching back to antiquity. In the 19th century, the land of Israel stood at a crossroads. Jewish communities endured, mostly in the 4 holy cities, but the land itself had suffered centuries of neglect under shifting imperial rule. Mark Twain visited the area in 1869 and he described the landscape with stark honesty. In The Innocents Abroad, he wrote that the land was a desolate country, given over wholly to weeds, and that its villages were silent and lifeless. His words, harsh, vivid and unforgettable, captured a land waiting for renewal. And that renewal was coming. The ancient memory preserved in exile, and the quiet continuity maintained in the land itself, were about to converge. The next chapter of Jewish history would be the beginning of modern Zionism, and the return of a people to their ancestral home. In the next episode, we explore how modern Zionism began, in thought and in action.